Good day. Welcome to Just Another Messenger, your daily decode of the digital, the political, and the prophetic. I'm your host, Tamara L. Powered by AI, grounded in truth, and fueled by rebellion, we sift through noise to bring you what they won't say out loud. If you're ready to unplug from the matrix and plug into the message, let's begin. We talk about borders like they've always been there. But before the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, before Mexico claimed the land, and long before the United States planted its flag, this land was not empty. It was alive with languages, laws, and nations. Long before Spain or Mexico laid claim to anything, the lands now called California, Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, and Nevada were governed by sovereign indigenous nations. California, the Ohlone, Tongva, Chumash, and Miwok steward the Pacific coast. The Southwest, the Puebloan peoples, Hopi, Zuni, Taos, built cities older than any in the U.S. Arizona and New Mexico, Apache, Navajo, Dine, and Tohono-O'odham territories stretched vast distances. Texas, Comanche, Caddo, Karankawa, and Lipan Apache lands were defended fiercely. These nations had governance systems, land boundaries, and international diplomacy, long before Europe even knew these lands existed. In the 1500s, Spain began claiming lands it didn't own, mapping territories it never governed. 1542, Juan Rodriguez Cabrillo explores the California coast. 1598, the Spanish crown declares New Mexico part of its empire. Franciscan missionaries established over 20 missions in California, aiming to erase indigenous identities through forced conversion and labor. Spain's control was more religious and symbolic than logistical. In reality, the majority of land remained in indigenous hands, until Spanish military and disease did what bullets alone could not. When Mexico won its independence in 1821, it inherited both the land and the colonial mindset. Mexico's northern frontier was vast but vulnerable. Indigenous resistance continued, especially from the Comanche, Apache, and Navajo. Mexican landowners attempted to establish ranchos and pueblos, but many indigenous groups refused to submit. Key fact: much of this land was still under native control, but history books rarely admit that. The U.S. didn't just cross into Mexican territory, it crossed into indigenous land. Twice removed. 1846 to 1848, the Mexican-American War. 1848, Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, Mexico loses half its territory. 1854, Gadsden Purchase finalizes the border we know today. But let's be clear, neither the U.S. nor Mexico got permission from the indigenous nations still living there. When people chant "we didn't cross the border crossed us," they're not just speaking for Mexico. They're speaking for centuries of stolen land from the people rebranded as Black, Negro, Colored, and African American. The immigration debate often leaves out the first and longest occupants of this soil, the indigenous nations. Today, these nations still exist, but their ancestral land remains occupied by two colonial successors, Mexico and the United States. Before Mexico, before the U.S., there were nations. And they are not gone. They are watching, remembering, reclaiming. Before borders, there were nations. Before maps, there was memory. The story of the land doesn't begin with Mexico or the United States. It begins with the people who still carry it within them. If this history opened your eyes, do more than just watch, share it, question it, and challenge the myths. Subscribe to the channel at Just Another Messenger. Support our work via Cash App, $JustAnotherMessenger. Stay curious. Stay critical, stay sovereign, because this land was never empty, and its story is not over.